Welcome, boys and girls. Dadesbuga is welcoming you into a session of biology, and then we are targeting grade 10, 11, and LGCSE. As you can see on the board, I have put that for you. And then as far as biology is concerned, there are so many topics, but we have decided that one topic that is a bit problematic to you is what you call genetics. Genetics, otherwise known as inheritance. Some other time they call it heredity. Let me put all those words together. So that heredity. Okay? So it's genetics, it's inheritance, it's heredity. I don't know if I got that spelling correct, but you know what I'm trying to talk about here. Let me remove that and I remain with these ones. We know from our parents we may inherit some lefa. So that's, we say we inherit. All right? Biologically speaking, this is where we talk about inheritance or getting some characteristics. We call them characteristics, or we call them features, or we even call them, okay, we can say the phenotype, okay? It doesn't matter what we can see, what can be observed. All right? As far as genetics are concerned, I'm sure you have heard of words like DNA. Let me write them down because I'm introducing this. You have heard of terms like DNA. Now they are talking about this COVID and they are talking about one word called RNA. You have words like genes. You have words like chromosomes. You have words like genetic material, and so on and so forth. Yes. All right. So that's it. And then, as I said, biologically speaking, when you talk about inheritance, it's all about characteristics. And then these characteristics that we are talking about, they are passed from one generation to another. What do I mean by that? For instance, you may talk about a human being, compare the human being to, for instance, a chimpanzee. And then you see that a human being is different. This is typical of a human being. You can put characters of a human being this side and put characters of chimpanzees on the other side. It means chimpanzees, or out of chimpanzees, other chimpanzees are going to be born. And then out of humans, other humans are born. Therefore, we see there is passage of this genetic information or characteristics from one generation to the next, and that is our topic. All right? These words that we did talk about, we shall go deeper into them as we get into this topic, but make sure that you mind this, and at your own spare time, make sure that you research about these words, know the meaning of those, because we are going to incorporate them as we go along with this topic. All right. Now, as I've said, I've talked about characteristics. So let me put it down. We have got what you call characteristics. Characteristics or features. We have what you call characteristics or features. And then these features may include things like height. They may include things like gender or sex, are you male or are you female? They may include things like skin complexion. They may include things like, can you roll your tongue? You know, we are going to talk about such things. Let's go into animals, for instance, cattle. Some have horns, some don't have, and their color. Talk about mice, the size of the tail. Is it a long tail or is it a short tail? You know, things like that. And then let's talk about dogs, for instance, their size, the shape of the head, the shape of, its mouth, and so on and so forth. So good people, I think you understand this. And those are collectively known as characteristics. Then these characteristics can be classified into two groups. We have got group A characteristics, which are said to be environmental, or we call them acquired characteristics. And then we have got this, which are genetic characteristics. Okay, let me just leave it like that. And then I want to make a few examples so that you understand. There are those characteristics that we get from the environment. More pelanting, like languages. I'm speaking Sesotho. It's true I was born in Mosotho, but my ability to speak Sesotho is not genetic. I didn't take it from my parents. I learned it from the environment. That's what you are saying. How about they were not born like that. Those are examples of what you call environment. Environmental that is very environmental. It's acquired from your surroundings. That means no one was born as a booster. It means people decided to, no, let's cut it. Therefore, it's one of those environmental characteristics. I think we are very clear. And then we come to the genetic ones. The genetic ones are the ones that we inherit from our parents, from their grandparents, and so on and so forth. Mona things like blood type. You don't just say, blood type O, blood type O. No. That one is deeper than what you think. This one goes deeper into what you call genetics. So, what do we inherit from the past generation that you are born out of? Okay? And then, into second gender. Well, to some extent, we live in the days where people choose their gender now, and transsexual operations where people operate to move from one gender to another, but not much comment on that one. The way we are born, gender, sex, it's very genetic. Okay, so you can't just say, no, both, male and female. It's one, and it's very genetic. So that is what we mean by characteristics. And these characteristics help us get into the next item, which is what you call variation. Okay? So variation means what? All the differences we observe. We are all different. I've talked about, for instance, blood type. There are those people who are type A, type B, type AB, and type O. Therefore, this is what we call variation. We are different. Variation simply means all the differences that we can see. There are some of us who are short, some of us who are moderately, have a moderate height, and then there are those of us who have got this, like myself, I have this advantaged height. You can see me. And complexion, there are those of us who are darker than I am, there are those of us who are lighter than I am, and so on and so forth. It simply means we are different variation. And then as far as variation is concerned, there is one question they like in multiple choice, which I'm going to address here. Variation in man and Leona, variation can be divided into two branches. Another branch, continuous variation. The variation is continuous variation. What we mean by continuous variation, we mean there are what we call intermediates. There are intermediates between what we call extremes. Let's take complexion, for instance. In the room that you are in, if you check complexion, you see that we can have two extremes on opposite sides. You may have those people with a very light complexion, and then we put them on one side, and then we have got those with a very dark complexion, okay? And then between those variations, between those two extremes, there are those that don't know whether they belong to that extreme or the other one. They are just in the middle. And therefore, that shows what you call continuous variation. Height is another example. Intelligence is another example. In a class of 100 students, some will get very good marks, some will get very low marks, but we don't just have those two extremes. In between, there will be those who say, I'm just average, I got average marks. So that is what we call continuous variation. Okay? Then we come to the next type of variation. This one is called discontinuous. Discontinuous variation. Okay? This continuous variation is different from the previous one in the sense that we still have our two extremes. We still have our extremes here. And then in these extremes, we have, or between the extremes, there will be very little or no intermediates at all. This one has intermediates between these extremes, but in this case, there are very rare or no intermediates at all. What do you mean? For instance, let's take the blood type. It's either you are A or you are B, you are AB or you are O. Okay, so it just ends there. No one will say I'm between these two extremes or I'm between this group and this one. It's either you are that or the other one. I think you understand this. We can also take another example to make you understand better. Gender. There are two types of gender or sex. Either you are a male or you are a female. Well, if there are some intermediates or what shares both from either side, we have very few of them, very rare. Let's talk about another example, the presence of horns or the absence of horns in cattle. Two extremes, either they have horns or they don't. Okay, someone may argue some horns would be longer than the other one. It means if they are there, yes, they are there. So in short, we are saying let's divide them into those with and those without, and therefore we can see that would be no intermediates between these two extremes. Okay, so that is what we call discontinuous variation. So my boys and girls, from here, now that we have seen this, characteristics, and then the different characteristics lead us into what you said is variation. Then from here now we are going to talk about how do we inherit all these things. This is where now we get deeper into those words that I put on the right side of the board, and then we go on and check and know what's happening. How come about that Mr. Sbuka, for instance, has this broad nose, and then he also has this shape of, the shape of his ears is like that. How did it come about? Then that's what we are going to get into next, and I'm going to stop here. Next time when we meet, now we are going to talk about that inheritance of this. Now we are going to use those other words. Thank you so much. All right.
Parents, let's do more for our children. We have started. We challenge you to partner us. Make sure the kids follow for a better Lesotho. Remember, it is important to get the updates every time we have a program. When you subscribe, you will always get the fresh updates, our programming, and do pose your questions. We guarantee they will be answered.